What's up, guys? It's Josh with Sobriety WoD. For some reason, humility's been coming up a lot lately, and so that's what I want to take a second to talk about and do the little class on today. So, humility. I remember when I was in treatment or when I was in the recovery center, and when I had this realization, I had been there a couple weeks and I had stopped drinking, but I was looking in the mirror and I was working at McDonald's. I had gotten a job. I was about to get a job at McDonald's. I was 31 years old, and I was actually in the bathroom at a meeting, and I looked in the mirror, and it's like, it all just hit me at once, just reality. And it was the fact that, I was 31 years old. I had 2 failed marriages. I had 2 kids that I didn't see. And I was about to start a job at McDonald's, and I think a lot of us, a lot of times, are prone to either an overestimation or underestimation of ourselves and our abilities. And I know for me, I tended to blame other people. I thought that I had all this ability, but when I looked at my life, I had to understand and realize the fact that that's where I was. That's who I was at that moment. I lived in a house with 17 guys in a state I had never lived in before, and really just didn't have a clue. And somebody told me that humility is just an accurate representation or an accurate estimate of yourself. And it's about, not being too hard on yourself, for one, so beating yourself up for things, but also not thinking that you're the God's gift to the world and everybody should bend over backwards for you. And I find that we tend to kind of vacillate between the two. It's part of the alcoholic personality. And so, I listed a couple things here that having too high of an estimate of ourselves can lead to like excessive pride or cockiness. We probably know people like that. One of the cool things in recovery, if you've ever heard, if you spot it, you got it. It's like the things that jump out to you about people, typically that's kind of how you are. So, if you see somebody that's kind of self-deprecatory and they're always like, oh, I'm just not good enough, and all, if that like really bothers you, a lot of times that's kind of how you are too. And the same on the flip side, So, being honest with you guys, sometimes I tend to that's my thing. I'm on that side. I'll tend to overestimate myself. And so when people come in and they like take over the room or take over the class, like I get irritated or whatever. And I know that. It's one of those things that I have to keep a watch out for. But humility is not, beating yourself down and just, I'm worthless. I'm just lucky to be here, and I don't deserve anything good. That's not it. You are a human being, capable, alive. You have gifts and talents. Like all that stuff is legitimate stuff. And so you need to be aware of that. It's okay to know, if you're good at running, or if you're really thoughtful, or whatever it is. Like it's okay to know that about yourself. It's just not okay to only know that about yourself. And that's where working with other people, being in a group, being open-minded can help us to have an accurate representation of ourselves. It's kind of like a business does an inventory, because denying the truth is not the right answer. It's working in line with reality. And so another thing that having this excessively high opinion of ourselves can lead to is an unwillingness to be to take responsibility for our own actions. And then I was thinking about it while I was writing it, but having too lowly of an opinion of yourself can also lead to the same thing, to a lack of self-responsibility for our actions. So how's that work? Well, if you have an extremely high opinion of yourself, you just don't listen to anybody. That's kind of part of it. But when we have a low opinion of ourselves, a lot of times what we'll do is lie to ourselves and say that we're incapable of doing anything about it. And that's not the reality either. So for the little discussion today, you guys hang out. I'm not going to pause the video, so I'll just hang out for a second. But for the discussion, my recommendation, you guys talk a little bit about what side of that you tend to be on. Because just being aware of that can help us kind of keep it in the forefront of our mind. So are you one that tends to like overestimate your abilities and kind of push yourself onto people? are you one of those people that tends toward kind of maybe underestimating yourself and maybe not having an accurate view of who you are and your abilities, but on that side of things? So you guys talk about that for a minute. All right, and then hopefully you guys had a good discussion. We're gonna bring this into CrossFit real quick so we can get started with this workout. You know, there used to be a saying around CrossFit gyms, and you guys might have it up or you may have seen it before, but it just said, leave your ego at the door. And the whole idea of that was, you know, when you come in to CrossFit, when you first start CrossFit, it can be an extremely humbling experience. But most people are either on one side or the other, you know. Some people they have an overestimation of their abilities, and they come in and they just want to beat everybody. They don't want to take the time to learn how to do things well and how to move well, and they don't take care of themselves. And so they just shoot out the gate. They're trying to keep up with all the girls and the guys in class, and it usually leads to one of three things. So one of them we see is just failure or quitting. You know, people try to keep up and they can't, and then they can't really face that. So a lot of times people will just stop, or that fear of not being able to measure up, you know. That would be kind of the flip side, where you have too low of an opinion of yourself, because the reality is, with work and attention and discipline and practice, you can get good at all this stuff too, you know. And the last thing I put that it leads to is the sudden loss of friends. So if you've ever met this person or been around this person, you know what I'm talking about. When we first started our gym, we started in the back of a Gold's gym, and people would see us through the little window. They'd see what we were doing, and they were like, kind of had that, not everybody, but people kind of had that attitude, like, I'm gonna come show y'all this dumbass CrossFit. I'm gonna come show y'all what fitness is. And man, we would try to hold them back, like warn them, like it's potent stuff, you know. So they would come in and just kind of bust their ass and try to beat everybody on the board. Jacob, go. Sorry, that's my dog. And they would just kind of whoop their own ass trying to keep up with us, you know, all ego, running on ego. And so it was a 2-round workout, rowing, squats, push-ups, sit-ups. Really, it's not that bad. It's like a 7 or 8 minute workout. And after the first round, in like 10 minutes, they would just kind of give up, you know, or break down, or someone would go outside and throw up. And it's funny because people either responded one or two ways, you know, and some of the people that had listened, they kind of respected us, and they listened to what we had to say, and they would basically finish that and say, man, I really thought that I was capable of more. How do I get started? How do I get to where I don't ever feel like that again, and I can do this type of stuff? And then we had other people that just would disappear. We had people quit Gold's Gym because they never wanted us to see them again because of how bad they felt. And I promise you, we didn't do this on purpose. Like, we tried for this to not happen. And it's funny because we actually had a guy who, he was gone. I didn't even remember him. He was gone for like 2 years, and he came back one day and he was like, "Do you remember me?" And I was like, "No, I don't." He was like, "I'm the guy that did so bad on the fit test," or whatever. Like, a lot of people did bad on the fit test. I found out he had kind of bombed it. He was one of those guys that disappeared. He quit the gym, everything. He had been training for 2 years to try and come back to CrossFit, which is totally unnecessary. But that's just a good example of kind of that drive that the ego can have, and sort of the insanity behind it too. You know, instead of just saying, man, I thought I was better off, you know, can you help me work out my weaknesses? Can you help me get better? The dude went and hid, basically like Batman, trying to train up for his final fight and come back and conquer CrossFit. And I think he came back for like a month and disappeared. So it's funny what the ego can do, and but it's all squashed by humility, you know, and having an accurate assessment of ourselves. So you got your workout today. I'll put a little bit there for the more advanced guys, if y'all want to bump it up a little bit. And for the sobriety WoD, just had an idea of identifying an area of your life where your opinion might be skewed. Your opinion of yourself might be skewed. Maybe people always compliment you for something and you don't listen. You know, people might try to build you up or tell you that you're talented or that, you know, you're funny or you're pretty or whatever, and you're just kind of like, oh. You know, that would be a time where if you're on the low side, that it's okay to acknowledge your gifts. You know, it's okay to acknowledge your talents. But maybe you're on the other side, and maybe, you know, you kind of rub people the wrong way all the time, and you find it hard to make friends, and, you know, there's just always this kind of animosity with you. Maybe you need to tone it down a little bit. And just by identifying that about yourself, just what side you're on, it can help us keep a lookout. And what else really helps us with this, and it's pretty much mandatory, is the help of another human being that you trust. When I first went to treatment, one of the things we had to do when you graduated was all stand in a circle, and we would ask, the person graduating would say to the group, help me see myself more clearly. And the group would all point something good and something bad out about the person. And it's pretty awkward, but at the same time, it's like, there are things about ourselves that only other people can see. We just can't see it about ourselves. And that's where those relationships become so important. If we really want to better ourselves, if we really want to get out of the holes that we get stuck in, we're going to need somebody else's opinion. So you guys get after it, have fun. I didn't welcome you if it's your first time, but welcome. If you've been coming, then keep on at it. You guys are doing great. Love sharing this with you. So have a good workout. We'll see you next week.